Hello, everybody. This is Sri from BizBuzz, sponsored by My Work Belt, big tools for small businesses. And today's show, I have Craig Andrews. Craig Andrews is the principal ally at Ally for Me. And most importantly, he is being a leader for helping small businesses applying different techniques on closing the transactions more quickly and more effectively than anything else, and for over 15 years. Craig also wrote a book. He's the author of Make Sales Magical. So if you guys are interested to learn how to make sales a magical experience, and you should be reading that book, and you can't miss that book. Craig, thank you very much for coming on board onto this podcast. Do you have any more to
Sure.
add?
Thanks for having me.
Yes.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. It's a delight. I've been looking forward to it.
Excellent. So the purpose of, as I mentioned to you in our conversation, the purpose of this podcast is having a casual conversation. But at the same time, during our conversation, I would like to have you share your knowledge and experience so that the small business owners or anybody leaders who are running or owning a small business can take advantage of what you got to offer, and we all can learn from each other. It's not that one owns everything. So I am purely being a conduit between you and the small business community. So do you mind if I ask you a few questions?
Yeah, please lead off.
Okay, so my fundamental question is, as you always see so many commercials in the TVs or in YouTube ads or everywhere, there is so many channels, so much activity going on all around you. The large corporations have deeper pockets and they have bigger teams. They can do all that. Whereas a small business, particularly those who owns, runs, operations, and all those small businesses, what can they do? How do they compete in this large corporation jargon?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of opportunity there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just because companies are large doesn't mean that they're effective.
Yeah.
Let me give an example from the financial advisory space.
Mm-hmm.
So Fisher Investments is by far the largest in terms of advertising spend. I'm not sure where they are now, but a few years ago, they were spending $60 million a year on marketing.
Wow.
Yeah. And, you know, and that's larger than, you know, many financial advisors out there.
Yeah.
Just their advertising budget is more than their total revenue.
Indeed.
And, but the thing is, I don't think Fisher's doing a great job. I don't think their message, they're just kind of flooding the zone with their brand. But what they're not doing is inspiring people to call them for any reason other than just they flooded the zone.
I see.
So the problem is, you know, financial advisors, you know, it's an undifferentiated space. They all do basically the same thing using the same tools. Now, some would come back and argue, well, there's differences, but the differences are minor. And more importantly, most of the clients really don't care about the differences.
Sure.
But there's an opportunity for smaller advisors to come in and get more bang for the buck. They don't have to have the massive presence that Fisher does. They can come in and they can say more with a smaller budget. Now, what they should do is be a little bit more focused on where they're reaching out to. You know, so if Fisher is just trying to flood the zone everywhere, if you try to operate in all the channels and all the places that Fisher is, you're going to lose a lot of money and you're not going to have a lot of impact. So what you should do is figure out narrowly where you're targeting and target very specifically there. But do it with a better message. Honestly, I just, you know, Fisher says, I haven't seen any of their recent ads, but they talk about how they're fiduciaries. Well, there's a couple issues with that. Out of 450,000 financial advisors in the country, at least half are going to tell you they're fiduciaries also.
Yeah. I mean, otherwise they'll be in trouble.
Well,
they better say it, right?
Yeah. Well, there's requirements. They're not necessarily required to be a fiduciary.
I see.
There are certain requirements that kick in when they claim to be a fiduciary. But the problem with that is, according to the SEC commissioner, it's still a meaningless statement. So Fisher's spending all this time focusing on something that, hey, we're a fiduciary, which a lot of them are claiming. And they're saying we're a fiduciary, but the SEC commissioner says, well, that's a meaningless statement. And the opportunities for small businesses is to go into something like that and speak more about the transformation that the person's really looking for. Now, I'm just using financial advisors as an example. But for instance, there are 9 personas of high net worth investors, and the number one persona is a family steward. They represent 34% of high net worth investors. And so if you want to be differentiated, how many ads do you hear in the financial advisory space talking about, hey, if you're somebody that wants to create a financial legacy for your kids and grandkids, here's a plan for you.
Right.
Have you ever heard somebody give that message?
Right.
They don't. They all
don't
talk about, well, you need to save for retirement, and they all have the same message. But 1/3 of high net worth investors, their primary goal for investing is to create a financial legacy to pass down to their kids and grandkids. And nobody is talking about it in their ads.
That is interesting.
And so if you want to go, yeah.
So you are saying,
please go ahead.
So you're saying that instead of talking about all these, instead of worrying about all these large corporations, large commercials and all that, as a small business owner, you can clearly clarify the message with the purpose of what actually their client is looking for and focus it, channel it into a focused, laser-focused group of prospects, and then you be able to get to a winning position. Is that message stating correct, right?
Absolutely. And buried in that message means that you are deliberately ignoring part of the market.
Right.
Which you need to do. If you want to come in with a smaller budget and have a big return on your budget, you need to ignore part of the market. You need to be very focused on who you're talking to.
Indeed, indeed. So speaking of very focused, so a small business owner, 9 out of 10 times in my experience, they are first a technician, or they might have inherited the business from their parents or grandparents, right? They're not like University of Michigan MBA graduate, or they're not like a MBA graduate from Harvard Business School or anything like that. They are small business owners. They are very, very good in doing what they're doing to deliver what they committed for their customers, right? How do you suggest that they need to understand who are their prospect and what is the focus that they need to do on? Is there any certain 1, 2, 3 tips that you can offer to the small businesses?
Yeah, your best opportunity is to look through your existing customers.
Yeah.
And figure out which of the customers you like the most and the ones that are most profitable for you. Most of the times, the ones that you like the most are also the most profitable.
That's true.
Look at the ones that you have. And let me give an example of somebody who did that, a very visible company that did that. Back in 1997, when Steve Jobs returned to Apple, Apple had 4% market share. They were just months away from bankruptcy. And Steve Jobs started looking at who could we sell a lot of computers to quickly to save Apple. And that was when they realized that the people that really loved Apple computers were creatives. And so he did all of his advertising focused to the creative types. And said,
I see.
That's who. But the way he got there was he looked through his existing customers. And so
Okay.
what I would recommend anybody, look at your customers, look at who's been bringing you business.
Right.
Now, a mistake that people make, and so the term that's thrown around is persona or avatar,
Mm-hmm.
sort of mean the same thing. And
Mm-hmm.
what people do, a lot of people know that they should do a persona. A smaller percentage of those actually do the persona, but when
Mm-hmm.
they do it, they take ingredients from multiple people, pour them
Mm-hmm.
into a mixing bowl, kind of like they're baking a cake,
Mm-hmm.
mix it all together, and they come up with a persona that is a Franken client. It's a
Mm.
monstrosity that doesn't exist in the real world because they blended different things.
Right.
And so the advice would be, don't blend. Think about very specific people. So that, let's say you have a client named John,
Mm-hmm.
and you say, you know what? Life would be perfect if I had another 100 clients just like John. And then dig in and deeply understand John.
Gotcha. Yeah. Thank you very much. That's a wonderful tip. Um, um, Now you you have been great advocate on first time offer for your clientele. So what is a first time offer means, and what needs to be done? How can anybody come up with something like that? And what is the importance of it in doing the sales and marketing process?
Yep. So first off, let me clarify who I usually work with. Um, I usually work with people that have high ticket, high trust services.
Right.
And so when I talk about first time offer, it's in the context of those people
Mm-hmm.
where, let's say the total engagement over at least the first 12 months is going to be in excess of $20,000. And that can break out a number of different ways. But a first time offer is a way of kind of breaking the ice.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of moving your client away from debating buying your services and trying to evaluate whether or not you're right for them, to as quickly and cheaply as possible, start working on something together.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, they come in and the first time offers basically a mini project. There's a few traits of it. One, it has to be an impulse purchase. That means the
Mm-hmm.
coins in the cushion of your couch, the money in your wallet, or the B2B equivalent of it.
Mm-hmm.
If if anybody has to ask permission to spend that money, it's priced too high.
Yeah.
If anybody will ever be held accountable for how it's spent, it's
Mm-hmm.
priced too high.
Mm-hmm.
So the next thing is it has to deliver disproportionate value to price.
Mm.
So if anybody has to do a calculation in their head to figure out if it's a good deal, it's
Mm-hmm.
not delivering enough value. It should be an overwhelming amount of value.
Mm.
Actually, to the point where sometimes when I present a first time offer, people were asking me that they believe they misheard. They
Mm.
they feel like they're missing something. They're like, "Are you saying I get all of this for this price?" I said, "Yeah." It's that good of an offer that they're shocked by the
So
value.
is that not going to become a troubling situation for the prospects? This is too good to be true, so I'm not going to trust it.
Haven't had that problem,
Huh.
and so the but there's a number of things that go together to make it work. It's very clear that it's a mini project that's getting things started. You're not offering to solve all of their problems.
Mm.
So
Gotcha.
let me touch on a couple other things. The third thing is it has to solve a problem. If
Mm-hmm.
it's not solving a problem, it's not going to work. It
Right.
has to solve a problem. But you want to leave the big problems unsolved and you want to naturally lead to the next step.
Mm-hmm.
And so people will look at this and they'll understand, yeah, that yes, this is going somewhere bigger where they're going to have to spend more money. But they also see it for what it is. It's moving them a few steps closer to their goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ideally it has 4 or 5 deliverables. And so those 4 or 5 deliverables are moving them 4 or 5 steps closer from where they are to where they want to be.
Right. It's again one step closer to the goal.
Yes.
Right.
And 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 the last thing that we do, and we recommend this, we do this with our offers, we recommend that all of our clients do this. It's treat it like a coffee date. You know, when you go on a coffee date, you're not committing to marriage. You're not
Yeah.
making the big commitment. And so we make it abundantly clear. We tell them, hey, once this is complete, you have 3 options. You can take this and implement it yourself. You can give it to someone else and have them implement it for you. Or if we mutually agree, we will help you implement it. And so
Right.
that's kind of sets the stage of, hey, we're going somewhere together, but we're going to do a little bit of work together. And what ends up happening when somebody's contemplating making a high ticket purchase, you know, 10, 20, 100,000, $1 million, they start getting very careful about it because they don't want to be ripped off, or if they're an employee, they don't
afraid
want
of
to be
failure.
fired. Hmm?
They're afraid of failure.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so,
I mean, if you're going for a movie, paying it $10, you don't care. But what you really worry about is, I go there and am I going to enjoy for the next 2 hours entertained, or am I going to get bored down and then roll my eyes and get worried about it? So it's not necessarily always that $10 that it's more importantly, is it going to be a successful experience for me or not?
well, and here's a very real fear. If you're dealing with an employee, they're afraid that it's going to get them fired,
Yeah.
or that they will look bad in front of their boss.
Right.
And so if they have to go tell, that's why it has to be an amount of money that they'll never be held accountable for.
Yeah. They don't have to worry about it.
Right.
Makes sense. Right. So
But
last but not least, sorry, what would you give 1 or 2 tips to a small business owner that they can implement right away and they can go forward with something as a takeaway from this podcast?
I think the first step would be look at your existing customer base, find one customer that just stands out, and if as your ideal customer, and deeply understand how you do 4 things in their life. Deeply understand how you, and all 4 transformations, how you transform what they have, how you transform what they feel, how you transform their average day, how you transform their status.
I see. Okay.
Because when you understand those 4 things and you start talking about that transformation rather than the product, you're going to start seeing an increase in sales.
Wonderful. That's a pretty powerful tip.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Greg. Greatly appreciate being on the show, and you have a great wealth of knowledge and wisdom that you are sharing with the small business community. Certainly appreciate your time on the show.
Thanks, Sri.
Wish you good luck.